What if the conflicts blazing across our screens, the ever-shifting allegiances, and the looming threats aren't just geopolitical chess moves? What if this simmering tension between Israel and Iran isn't merely a product of modern politics, but an ancient drama etched in the very fabric of Scripture? Imagine, long before drones filled the skies and political analysts dissected every move, the end was already foretold, a celestial blueprint guiding the hands of nations. In a world saturated with talk of cyber warfare and nuclear proliferation, it's easy to attribute global unrest to political ideologies and economic rivalries. But what if, lurking beneath the surface of diplomatic posturing and military might, lies something far more primal, something spiritual? Could the animosity between Iran and Israel be more than a mere struggle for dominance, but a piece of a grand, divine puzzle pieced together millennia ago? This isn't just a story of warring nations. It's a prophecy unfolding in real time. What does the Bible truly reveal about the ultimate outcome of this conflict? Join me as we delve into the ancient texts, seeking to decipher the potent prophetic truths concealed within this clash of nations. To truly grasp the roots of this enduring conflict between Jews and Arabs, we must journey back, not only through historical records, but into the very heart of divine purpose. Picture a vast, desolate wilderness, a landscape where silence reigns and time seems to stand still. In this barren land stood Abraham, not a king, not a conqueror, but a man chosen by God. It was here, amidst the whispering sands, that Abraham received a promise of such magnitude that it would echo through generations and shape the destinies of entire nations. The voice of the Lord declared in Genesis 12:7, "To your offspring I will give this land." But who were these offspring? Before Isaac, the son of promise, even drew his first breath, Abraham fathered another son, Ishmael, through Hagar, his Egyptian servant. Imagine the internal struggle within Abraham's heart. One son, born of unwavering faith and patient waiting. The other born of human agency and perhaps a touch of desperation. Ishmael was not forsaken. He was cherished, and he was seen by God. In Genesis 17:20-21, the Lord proclaimed, "As for Ishmael, I have heard you. I will surely bless him, but my covenant I will establish with Isaac." Can you discern the divine separation? Two sons, two beginnings, two distinct paths destined to collide like fire and oil. Ishmael would become the progenitor of many great nations, his lineage branching into the diverse Arab tribes, many of whom would form the bedrock of the Islamic world. Isaac, on the other hand, would father Jacob, later renamed Israel, from whose 12 tribes would emerge to carry the sacred covenant of God throughout history. Pause for a moment and consider this. If you were Abraham, standing in the scorching heat of the desert, witnessing both your sons grow, one basking in the light of the covenant, the other in the blessing shadow, what would you feel? Could you possibly foresee the future that lay ahead? This is not merely a family saga. It's a prophecy in motion, a destiny unfolding. Have you ever pondered why the conflict between Israel and the Arab world feels so deeply personal, so unyielding, so inextricably linked to faith? At its core, it's because its origin wasn't rooted in politics. It began with a sacred promise, a promise that continues to resonate within the very bloodlines of nations today. What if your family carried such a profound divine divide? Would you recognize the spiritual implications, or would you only perceive the superficial? The conflict portrayed in the news might just be the fulfillment of ancient words spoken beneath a starlit desert sky. But this is only the prologue. Are you prepared to discover what unfolded next? Beyond the centuries of struggle between the descendants of Isaac and Ishmael lies a third, often overlooked lineage. While the spotlight remains focused on the sons of Abraham, perhaps the key to understanding contemporary global tensions lies in examining the era following the Great Flood. When Noah's sons emerged into a cleansed and silent world. Among Noah's 3 sons, Japheth fathered a lineage that would spread far and wide across the continents. Genesis 10:2 lists his sons, including Madai. Who was Madai? His name appears fleetingly, yet his descendants would coalesce with one of the most formidable powers the ancient world had ever witnessed, the Persians. Can you sense the subtle unfolding of destiny? From Japheth arose the Medes, and their union with the Persians gave rise to the Medo-Persian Empire, a mighty kingdom of iron and silver, destined to crush Babylon and inscribe its name into the very structure of biblical prophecy. Today, we recognize this land by another name, Iran. Have you ever considered that Iran's origins can be traced back to the sons of Noah, that modern geopolitical tensions might be echoes of ancient bloodlines and divine orchestration? While the world observes a nation with nuclear ambitions and regional influence, the Bible sees something far more ancient, a people foretold. If you were to stand at the dawn of time with Noah, watching his sons venture in different directions, could you have imagined that their descendants would one day represent forces that would shape the course of global history? What if the conflict between Israel and Iran transcends mere politics or power struggles? What if it represents the unfolding of a prophetic script written thousands of years ago? 3 lineages, 3 destinies, 3 forces now converging in the heart of the Middle East, and the narrative continues to gain momentum. Are you beginning to perceive the larger picture? Or is there an even deeper truth waiting to be revealed? And so, the ancient stage was set, though the world largely remained unaware that they were witnessing prophecy unfold before their eyes. On one side stood Israel, born through Isaac, the promised son, carrying the sacred covenant passed down from Abraham. This nation was chosen to walk closely with God, to uphold his laws, and to serve as a beacon among nations. But Israel was not destined to stand alone in this divine drama. Across the desert expanses and towering mountains, the sons of Ishmael rose, fierce, numerous, and blessed in their own right. These descendants of Abraham through Hagar became the forefathers of many Arab tribes, a people of strength and spirit whose presence would shape the religious and political landscape of the Middle East. Although the covenant did not pass through Ishmael, God's promise to bless him remained steadfast. Could this be why the tension has never been solely about territory, but about legacy? And then, from a seemingly distant direction, yet prophetically significant, came the descendants of Japheth through Madai, who merged with the rising power of Persia. From this union arose an empire so vast and powerful that it would eventually challenge Babylon itself. That empire, the Medo-Persian Colossus, still casts a long shadow through what we now call Iran. Did you ever imagine that Iran's origin could be traced back to Noah's own bloodline? 3 branches, 3 ancient names: Israel, Persia, and the Arab nations, each bound not only by history, but by divine decree, each carrying a piece of a divine puzzle that spans continents and centuries. Are you beginning to sense the invisible hand weaving through it all. If you were a celestial observer, watching from the heavens as these three lines emerged from deserts, mountains, and plains, would you begin to ponder the grand plan they were being drawn into? Could you feel the weight of prophecy in their every step? This was no mere accident of geography, no coincidence of culture. It was orchestration. It was alignment. It was preparation. The pivotal question now is, what were they being prepared for? And why are their paths colliding once again in our lifetime? However, Persia's role in biblical history wasn't always defined by opposition. In a stunning twist, the very empire that now challenges Israel was once used by God as an instrument of mercy and restoration. Yes, Persia, the same land whose modern name is Iran, once held a sacred place in the unfolding of God's redemptive plan. Picture the devastation of Jerusalem in 586 BC. The temple, once filled with the glory of God, lay in ruins. The streets of Zion fell silent, and its people were dragged into exile by the Babylonians. For the Jewish people, it must have felt like the end of everything they held sacred. Can you imagine being torn from your home, witnessing the place of God's presence reduced to rubble? Could hope possibly survive such profound loss? But there was a promise, spoken long before the destruction. The prophet Jeremiah, bearing the heavy weight of both warning and comfort, had declared, "When 70 years are completed for Babylon, I will come to you and fulfill my gracious promise to restore you to this place." Jeremiah 29-10. A promise that seemed impossible until God intervened and stirred a heart no one anticipated. Enter Cyrus the Great, a pagan king, a ruler without a covenant, without the Torah, without a priesthood. And yet, 150 years before his birth, the prophet Isaiah wrote his name. "This is what the Lord says to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I take hold of, to subdue nations before him." Isaiah 45-1. Let that sink in. God called a Persian king his anointed. Have you ever pondered what it means for a man outside of Israel to be called God's anointed? What degree of authority must reside within a person when the Lord himself claims to guide their right hand? Cyrus would go on to overthrow Babylon, and instead of enslaving the Jews, he did the unthinkable. He set them free. He issued a decree recorded in the opening chapters of Ezra, allowing the Jews to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple. Imagine the sound of hammers once again ringing against sacred stone, the joyous laughter of exiles returning home, the fulfillment of prophecy in real time. Persia, the outsider, became an instrument of divine restoration. Through Cyrus, God revealed a profound truth. He is not limited by borders or bloodlines. He can use anyone, even a foreign king, to fulfill his holy purposes. If he could use Persia for good once, could he do it again? Or has something fundamentally changed? What does this reveal about God's methods? And is it possible that he is raising up unexpected figures, even now, figures the world least expects, to shift the balance of history once more? The story of Israel and Persia is not solely about animosity. It's about the mysterious workings of a sovereign God who inscribes names into prophecy before their owners even take their first breath. Are you beginning to see how deep these connections run? And could this ancient cycle be repeating itself before our very eyes? However, Persia's role in this divine drama did not conclude with the mercy of Cyrus. The story took a darker turn, one that continues to send shivers down the spine of history. Years after the temple was rebuilt and the exiles had returned, The Persian Empire once again became the backdrop for a cosmic confrontation. This time, the enemy was not outside the palace walls, but within them, under the reign of King Xerxes, also known in the Bible as Ahasuerus. A high-ranking official named Haman rose to power. His hatred was cold, calculated, and absolute. Hidden beneath royal robes and courtly titles was a man consumed by a single, terrifying ambition: to eradicate every Jew throughout the empire. Have you ever considered how close the chosen people came to total annihilation? What if the entire future of Israel rested on the courage of one concealed figure? Yet God was already several steps ahead. Unbeknownst to Haman, a young Jewish woman named Esther had been placed within the palace, an orphan raised by her cousin Mordecai, now crowned queen in a foreign land. Esther may have appeared to be royalty, but within she carried the destiny of her people. And when the moment of decision arrived, she faced the ultimate test: remain silent and secure, or speak out and risk everything. Mordecai's words in Esther 4:14 continue to resound across the centuries. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? Have you ever wondered if your own position, your job, your sphere of influence, your platform, was divinely appointed for a purpose greater than yourself? Esther chose to act. She exposed Haman's plot before the king, and her bravery turned the tide. The Jews were spared, the enemy was vanquished, and once again, Persia became the unlikely battleground of deliverance. But beneath this miraculous rescue, a darker truth lingered, a truth that never truly vanished. A spiritual tension had begun to take root. What had once been a land of restoration under Cyrus had now given rise to a plot of extermination under Haman. The very soil that once bore freedom now harbored a seed of destruction, and that seed did not die. Isn't it remarkable how history can shift with the rise of one individual's heart, whether for good or for evil? And what if the spirit that once motivated Haman never truly disappeared, but lay dormant, awaiting its moment to return? Centuries passed, but the shadow persisted. Persia would rise again, not with decrees of liberation, but with words that echoed ancient hatred, not with mandates of return, but with cries of annihilation. Could it be that the past is speaking to the present? And if so, are we truly listening? The narrative is far from over. In fact, it may just be beginning anew. Do you see it? Or do you still perceive Persia as merely a place on the map? In 1979, history took a chilling turn. The ancient land once known as Persia, the empire that once liberated the Jews under Cyrus and later threatened them under Haman, was reborn with a new face, this time not as a monarchy, but as a theocracy. The Islamic Revolution swept across Iran like a tempest, overthrowing the Shah and raising a new banner over the nation, one not merely political, but profoundly spiritual. A regime rooted in Shiite Islam emerged, carrying not only national ambitions, but an apocalyptic vision. From its earliest pronouncements, the new Iran declared an unwavering mission: the destruction of Israel. Can you imagine a modern government whose very foundational documents are infused with ancient hatred? Iran's leaders began to refer to Israel as the Little Satan, a title steeped in contempt and religious symbolism. Their vow? To erase her from existence, to cleanse the land of the people once promised by God Himself. And this was not mere empty rhetoric. Iran's support of proxy groups like Hezbollah and Hamas transformed words into weapons. Through funding, training, and the provision of arms, Iran has ignited flames of terror across the Middle East. These groups do not merely oppose Israel. They exist in part to fulfill Iran's unspoken prophecy, to strike at the covenant people from the shadows. Their very constitution denies Israel's right to exist, not to negotiate, not to coexist, but to exist. But beneath the military strategies and political speeches, can you sense something darker, something ancient at work? What kind of power compels a nation to craft its very identity around another nation's destruction? Is it simply politics, or is it prophecy resurfacing? What if the spirit that whispered to Haman now reverberates through modern microphones and missile blueprints? What if this isn't just a regional conflict, but a spiritual war that stretches back to the desert cries of Ishmael, the promises made to Isaac, and the rising voice of Japheth's sons? If you are living in Israel today, knowing that your enemies reside not only at your borders, but within the pages of ancient prophecy, how would you pray? How would you prepare? Iran's transformation in 1979 was not merely a change in political power, it was a shift in the spiritual atmosphere. And while the world sees political conflict, those with discerning eyes might perceive something far deeper. The stage is being set once more. The same soil that once held both deliverance and destruction now trembles with prophetic tension. Can you sense it? The ancient players have returned to the stage, and the final act may be closer than we think. Hidden deep within the pages of Daniel lies a revelation so profound that most overlook it entirely. In chapter 10, we find the prophet in a moment of intense spiritual desperation. For 21 days Daniel fasted, abstaining from bread, wine, and meat, seeking understanding from God. But heaven seemed silent. Why the delay? Had his prayers gone unheard? Then suddenly, an angel appeared, radiant and breathless with urgency, and what he said shattered the boundary between the physical and the spiritual. But the prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me 21 days. Daniel 10:13. Wait, what prince? Daniel lived in exile under the Persian Empire, but this was no earthly ruler. This was a spiritual principality, a dark force assigned to Persia, powerful enough to delay a heavenly messenger. Can you grasp the significance of that? Behind Persia, there was a demonic intelligence, a territorial spirit influencing the direction of kings and kingdoms. And if such a being held sway then, who or what holds sway behind modern-day Iran? Ephesians 6-12 removes the veil completely. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. The real war, then, is not fought in parliaments or on battlefields. It is waged in the invisible realm where ancient spirits whisper into the hearts of leaders, where darkness manipulates policy, where hatred is inflamed not by strategy, but by malevolent spirits. Could it be that the same prince who resisted the angel in Daniel's day still stalks the land today? Has the principality behind Persia ever truly been cast down? Or has it merely changed its mask? Iran's animosity toward Israel is not simply rooted in ideology or history. It is spiritual. It is ancient. It is prophetic. When Iran declares its desire to wipe Israel off the map, it is echoing a voice that first spoke behind the thrones of kings long dead. If you stood beside Daniel during those 21 days, feeling the weight of the silence, would you have imagined a war raging above your head? What if your prayers today are contending with the same darkness, This is not merely about nations. It's about realms. It's about prophecy. It's about a kingdom of darkness that has opposed the covenant people from the beginning. And now that battle is reaching a boiling point. Are we paying attention? Or have we been distracted by the superficial while the real war is being fought just beyond our sight? Ezekiel 38 opens like a prophetic storm cloud gathering on the horizon of time. Dark, foreboding, and undeniable. In this ancient chapter, written millennia ago, the prophet describes a terrifying vision. A vast coalition of nations rising in unison against one small, sacred land. And at the heart of this alliance, standing boldly among the aggressors, is none other than Persia. Modern-day Iran. Persia, Cush, and Put are with them. Ezekiel 38:5. The names may sound archaic, but their modern echoes are unmistakable. But Persia is not alone. Marching beside her are nations from the south, regions known today as North Africa. And from the far north, a strange and powerful figure emerges. Gog, from the land of Magog. Who is this Gog? His identity has stirred debate for generations. Some scholars trace him to the Aryan areas near modern-day Russia, or the steppes of Central Asia. Others view him as a broader representation, a symbolic leader of a global anti-Israel alliance. Can you envision such a coalition forming today? A confederacy that includes Iran, North African powers, and northern giants uniting not for peace, but for a singular, destructive purpose. So, as we've journeyed through the scriptures, from the promises to Abraham to the visions of Ezekiel, we've seen a story much bigger than just political maneuvering. It's a story etched in the annals of time, a divine narrative where nations like Israel and Iran aren't just players on a geopolitical stage, but characters in a prophetic drama unfolding before our very eyes. It's a reminder that beneath the surface of everyday events, there's a deeper spiritual reality at play. We've explored how ancient promises, bloodlines, and spiritual forces all converge in this complex relationship, revealing a God who is both sovereign and intimately involved in the affairs of nations. It's a powerful perspective shift, and one that invites us to see current events through the lens of eternity. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What resonated with you most from this exploration? Do you have any questions? Or perhaps a different perspective you'd like to share? Please leave a comment below, and let's continue this conversation together. And if you found this journey into the scriptures insightful, please consider subscribing to the channel. That way, you won't miss out on future videos where we'll continue to unpack these fascinating connections between ancient prophecy and modern-day events. Thanks for watching.